That's Dwayne Gully Queen Jones doing what he loved, dancing. The 17-year-old became another one of Jamaica's over 500 murders since the start of 2013.
Dwayne Jones, better known as Gully Queen, was born and raised in the less privileged part of Montego Bay, Jamaica. Dwayne desired to become a teacher or to either work in the tourism industry in Jamaica. He also had dreams to become a performer, like the American pop star Lady Gaga. From a very early age, Dwayne noticed that he was not similar in character to the other young boys around him. As Dwayne became older, going through puberty, he started to take on the characteristics of a female. This led him to becoming a victim of bullying at his high school. Because of the unbearable bullying, he dropped out of school. Jones's father was not exactly supportive of his son's effeminate behavior and threw him out just at the age of 14. Not only did he do this, but he also encouraged neighbors to chase Dwayne out of the neighborhood until he was out of sight. Dwayne had no other choice but to sleep in bushes and on the beach to avoid being beaten and ridiculed because of his sexuality. Dwayne would become accustomed to sleeping on the streets and anywhere he can really rest his head at night. He began squatting in an abandoned government building in the hills, north of Montego Bay, where he was welcomed by other men just like him, who had been banished because of their sexuality. Dwayne became very close to two young transgender women who were around the age of 23, named Kiki and Chloe. These two women took a liking to Dwayne due to their similar life experiences and passions. This is when Dwayne would now be referred to as Gully Queen by friends. The island of Jamaica possesses laws that criminalize same-sex activities between males that was introduced since the 1860s. According to the Sexual Offences Act of 2009, any man convicted under these laws must register as a sex offender. In 2006, Time magazine deemed Jamaica as the most homophobic country in the world. With this knowledge, we can see why people like Dwayne had no place to run to when it came to their sexuality and identity. Now that Dwayne was surrounded by people like him, he started to embrace who he really was. He began cross-dressing and expressing himself unapologetically, and no longer had to hide who he truly was, living in Montego Bay's underground LGBTQ+ community. In this community, Dwayne became known as a proficient dancer who won numerous dance tournaments through the region. On the evening of July 21st, 2013, Dwayne Jones was just 16 years old, still homeless and living a life of poverty. Dwayne and his two friends, Kiki and Chloe, got all dressed up and headed to a bar in the Irwin area of Montego Bay, which held parties every weekend called Hennessy Sundays. This would be Dwayne's first time attending a bar not made for gays or transgender men, cross-dressing. The three arrived at the bar by taxi around 2 a.m., and Dwayne passed as a female at the party. The trio began dancing, and Dwayne soon lost himself in the music, inevitably becoming the star of the show. Dwayne was soon sought out by a number of men in the club and even danced with some of them, keeping his biological sex a secret. These men were not only attracted to Dwayne's dance moves, but also his appearance. Though Dwayne intended to keep his biological gender a secret at this party, he revealed himself to a girl he knew, who he attended church with earlier on in his life. Her family and his family were both familiar with each other. Dwayne returned to the dance floor, not anticipating that this girl would rush off to tell her male friends who Dwayne really was. This group now waited for the right moment to accost Dwayne. When Dwayne stepped out of the club, he was surrounded by a group of strange men he hardly knew, and some who he danced with inside the club. Some of them were just gathered around out of pure outrage. They started to demand Dwayne's true gender, asking him, "Are you a man or a woman?" Dwayne responded, telling them that he was a girl, but this crowd didn't choose to believe him. One of them pulled out a lighter and held it down to Dwayne's feet to examine it. They then proclaimed that Dwayne's feet were too big to be a woman's. A male from the group then decided to grope Dwayne, declaring that Dwayne was indeed a man to the other members. This made the crowd furious, as they shouted homophobic slurs, which then catapulted into verbal threats of violence against Dwayne. Chloe, who now saw that things were getting heated, encouraged Dwayne to walk away from the situation and to leave with her, telling Dwayne, "Walk with me, walk with me." But Dwayne refused to leave, standing his ground, insisting that he was a girl, and even if he wasn't, it wasn't any of their business. Things took a turn for the worst, as the mob was now becoming physical. A member of the mob grabbed at Dwayne's bra strap, causing him and Chloe to run away. This group didn't quit and started chasing both Dwayne and Chloe down the road. Dwayne and Chloe lost each other during the chase, but a brutal assault began to unfold with Dwayne at the center of it. Dwayne was severely beaten and stabbed for several minutes. He was also shot and ran over by a car. For over 2 hours, Dwayne was slipped in and out of consciousness before being attacked once again. During the time of his assault, not one person stepped in to help young Dwayne as he died. Chloe was brutally beaten and nearly raped by the same group of attackers that had ultimately killed Dwayne. But in a moment of confusion, Chloe had been able to escape and take refuge in a nearby church, and then later in a patch of woods nearby. She wasn't able to call for help because she didn't have her cell phone with her, so she just had to patiently wait for the morning. When she finally slipped away, Chloe was one of the first to discover Dwayne, or at least what remained of him. She said, and I quote, "When I saw Dwayne's body, I started shaking and crying. It was horrible. It was so painful to see him like that." Dwayne's body was covered in bruises. He had been stabbed numerous times and had been shot about 3 times. It was one of the most brutal crime scenes the police had ever came across. Dwayne's family refused to claim his body at first, but as the days rolled on, they changed their minds, giving 16-year-old Dwayne a proper send-off. Dwayne's murder didn't garner much attention from the Jamaican public, although it made headline news, with many brushing off the murder as the unfortunate result of his sexuality. Police would go on to investigate, but to this day, no arrest has been made for the murder of Dwayne Jones.